I want to tell you a story about how one of my best friends almost killed me trying to help me sleep. But first, let me tell you a little about myself. I am both Russian and Chinese. My mother and father met each other when they were studying during their doctoral degrees. My father was from Russia and in China for an exchange program. And nothing more really needs to be said. They fell in love, my father fought for my mom's family and for their approval to get married. He won them over, they got married. Then they had my 3 older brothers. Let's call them Bojiang, the oldest, Mingyu, the second oldest, Tengfei, the second youngest, and finally me, Victor, the youngest. All 3 of my older brothers look like my mother. Black eyes, thick black hair, and pale white skin, while I look more like my father. I have my mother's face, but I have thick wavy brown hair and blue eyes. That's probably why I'm the only one with the Russian name. Anyway, all of us are in secondary school. Bojang is in grade 11, Mingyu is in grade 10, and I'm in grade 9 with Tengfei. Even though we're 2 years apart in age. I skipped grade 7 and 8. Being in class with the people who are older than you is hard because you can't make good friends very easily. Especially if you look the way I do. But I managed to make good friends, at least 2. Let's call them Longwei and New. Even though I am 2 years younger than they are, they treat me with respect, which is nice. I don't always struggle at school and I'm actually very smart. And when it comes to Longwei and New, they need some help. So I help them. They help me not to be lonely in school and I help them with school and homework. Sometimes it's like a pretty good trade, right? But I still manage to get in trouble in school sometimes because I fall asleep in class. And I'm no stranger to getting caned. It doesn't hurt any less as time goes on. And it's always the same too. I accidentally fall asleep, then the next thing I know I hear the cane hitting my desk. Then the teacher point out to the door. I walk with her outside the classroom, turn towards the wall, and then I get hit in the back with the cane. Then I walk back into the class and continue working. Caning is legal as long as the caning is done properly, not in anger, and without causing harm to the kids. I try my hardest not to fall asleep, but I just can't. Whenever it's time to go to bed at home, I end up staying up all night, naming all the dots on my ceiling. I know what you're thinking. Why not ask my parents for help? I just never felt comfortable asking them. My father is a neurosurgeon and my mother is an anesthesiologist. They are busy all the time, and yet they always make time for the family. I didn't want to give them anything else to worry about on top of their already busy schedule. As long as I kept my grades up, that was fine. 1 or 2 cane strikes to the back was not even that bad. One day I was eating lunch and then New and Longwei came to join us. They were acting a little different than usual, so I asked them what was wrong. Then they handed me a plastic bag with a couple of pills inside. I looked at New to see if he knew what was going on, but he had no idea, it seemed. Then Longwei began to explain what they were and what they were used for. He told me that his dad was going to see a sleep therapist because he had some trouble sleeping, and the doctor had given him medication to put him to sleep. He took some for me because he didn't want to see me get caned anymore for falling asleep in class. He was hesitant at first since taking medications that aren't yours are dangerous, but it had been such a long time since I had a good night's sleep that I agreed, stuffed them in my backpack and took them anyway. I thanked him and I joked that maybe I could finally catch up on my piano piece. I needed to memorize for school orchestra concert happening in a few weeks. He laughed and he told me he would bring me more when I ran out. It was a Friday, so I decided to test out the medication since I didn't have school next day. That night, right after brushing my teeth, I took one of the pills. The pills were not very big, so I swallowed it easily. And it didn't take long for it to start working. The next morning I woke up to the smell of breakfast. I was really drowsy and I was barely able to keep my eyes open. Everyone was already at the table eating. I quickly walked to the table and sat down. Mother looked at me with worried expression, asked me if I was okay and if I was feeling sick. I told her I was fine and that I was really tired from a long week at school. Father and Bojang also looked worried, but Mingyu and Teng Fei knew something was up, so I had to be very careful. For the next couple of weeks I took medication without anyone finding out, and I felt great. I hadn't been caned in 3 weeks and my teachers seemed happy with the change. But after the 3rd week I started feeling sick. My stomach started to hurt and I was tired all the time. I felt worse and worse as each day went by. I started taking more of them, thinking that they were not working. That was a mistake. On Thursday of the 4th week I could barely function. I felt so bad I could barely stand up on my 2 feet, and I also skipped breakfast. I grabbed my backpack and I walked out the door, with all of my brothers like usual. Mingyu and Teng Fei ran ahead, while Bojang and I kept at steady pace. We walked in silence for a while until Bojang broke the silence. He asked me if I was nervous for my piano solo today. I quickly spun around, almost losing my balance to face him. I had completely forgotten about it. I nodded and we continued on. The rest of the way to the school, he kept giving me words of encouragement, and he told me I was going to do great. I thanked him, and I was about to walk through the gate. He got his knees and grabbed my shoulder. He looked at me with a very worried expression. He told me that I hadn't been acting right, and that he knew that there was something else wrong. I wanted to tell him everything, but I didn't. I looked at him and told him that I had been feeling sick for the past couple of days, but it was nothing serious and that I can handle it on my own. He sighed and gave me a hug. I told him I loved him and that I would see him in school concert. The day was a blur. I still can't remember what happened until it became time for the concert. Long Wei and Yu were standing right next to me and backstage. I looked at them both, white as a sheet, telling them that I did not think I could play. Yu looked concerned and agreed that I did not look well enough to play. This was a big part of our musical class grade. He then went on to ask me how many pills I had taken last night. I sighed and I told him 6. Long Wei looked worried, but to us 6 didn't seem like a lot since they looked small enough. And before we could say anything else, it was time to start and our teacher pushed us on stage. Walking on the stage I could see Bojang on the 2nd row with a video camera. He was going to record the concert, so mother and father could see, since they had to work. We took all our places and the concert had begun. It was going good so far, but then came my solo. I held my breath as I played it, then I finished it, and I was relieved. The hard part was over. I had only a couple of more chords to play, then the concert would be over. Then I could go home, but never got that far. Near the end of the piece, my vision started to blur, and my hearing became muffled. I couldn't hear the piano anymore. Then all of a sudden, I felt this horrible stabbing pain in my stomach. I stopped playing and I grabbed my stomach and tried to take deep breath, but I suddenly couldn't breathe. The last thing I remember was the feeling of me falling down backwards. When I opened my eyes, I could not speak. There was a tube down my throat. I was too weak to even sit up. But from where I was, I could see mother, father and Mingyu sitting on the couch outside my room, while Bojang and Teng Fei were sleeping in chairs with their heads resting on the end of my bed. Bojang was holding my hand, and I started to tremble and cry silently. Then I started to gag, and a bunch of machines I was hooked up to started beeping loudly, which woke up everyone. I felt like I was choking. The doctors came running in. I could hear my mother start crying. They put something in my IV and pulled out the tube. They had put oxygen mask on my face and I passed out from the medicine. When I woke up again, I was alone. Not a doctor or nurse in sight. I was stronger this time, so I sat up slowly. My stomach and my throat was sore, but I felt better. Then I heard the door to my room open. Bojan came in with a tray of tea. Then he saw me sitting up. He froze, dropped the tray on the floor and ran to my side, giving me a huge bear hug. Then he started yelling for the rest of the family. They all ran in, and I was covered in hugs and tears. After a while, the doctor came in and asked me what happened, and I told him everything. How I was having trouble sleeping, the pills, how I felt. Then he explained what had happened to me. The medicine I took was very high-dose sedative, even though they looked small. The night before the concert, I had taken too many, and it had caused my breathing to become dysfunctional, which sent me into a cardiac arrest. It was a lot to take in all at once, but I understood. The doctor told me that my heart was damaged and that I needed immediate surgery to fix it. But they were waiting until I was stable enough to do it. And the only reason I didn't die was because Long Wei and Yu told them what I was up to. I looked around and my family was smiling. They were just happy that I was alive. And this surgery was just one more hurdle to get over. I cried and I apologized to my family, and we cried for a while until it was time to go. I said my goodbyes and went under. I was discharged about a week and a half later, and everything is good now. The only difference is that I got my sleeping problem fixed, and I don't hide anything from my family anymore, now that I have a scar on my chest as a reminder to trust my family and to stay away from medications that are not mine.